Okay, sweet. All right. So there's two main types of drawings that we're going to learn about. And we're learning about these two types of drawings because in industry, no matter what country you're in, they're always, if it's a 3D product that's being created, something 3D you'd hold in your hand, there's always going to be two ways you have to show that off. And one way is to show off the form of it or its aesthetics, and the other way is to show off its function. So if you want to show off the form of the object where you would see what it looks like in real life complete, that's going to be in 3D. And that type of picture is called an isometric sketch. And that's the one that we're going to work on for the rest of this evening, isometric sketching, right? And so if it was a cell phone, you might see a cell phone laid out in 3D in this type of view that we're going to learn in a few minutes. In this type of 3D view, in this isometric view, we could see, without it being skewed, at least three faces of this object, right? Three faces that would have six faces altogether. It's like a cell phone, you know. And in this picture, it would be shown off with all of its color, just like it would look in real life, you know. And then there'd be another picture called an orthographic, which is a fancy word for blueprint. Orthographic. And the orthographic pictures are usually on graph paper, or almost always on graph paper, unless you're drawing them in CAD software. But even when you're drawing them in CAD software, you start drawing them from one view or the other. And they usually break the paper into 4 quadrants. And orthographic, you'll have like the front view of something. You could have the side view of something. You could have the bottom view of something. And in that case, an orthographic, which is 2-dimensional, we wouldn't see all 3 dimensions, length, width, and height. We would just see the front of the phone, front facing, right in front of us. We could only see length, width, and height on it. And then right next to it, we'd see a side view of the phone. And then right below it, we'd see, maybe there's buttons over here on the side. That button would go with that button. Same thing, right? And then you'd see the bottom view we place right below it. This type of thing where the charger plugs in. And these pictures also have dimensions on them. They would tell you how big something is, right? And the idea is that from these 3 pictures, essentially in real life, you could have 6 pictures. You could have front, left side, right side, top, and bottom. You could have all 6. We're only going to draw with three views when we do ours later. But you need both of these types of pictures, because this one's going to help somebody understand the function, exact sizes of everything, where everything's placed. That way, if they have to reproduce and actually build it, they could follow your orthographic plan to build it. To see what it's going to look like finished, to get an idea of the final product and the aesthetics of it, we would see it in this 3D view. Okay, so both of these are types of drawings that you may have learned about in like an engineering class if you had it. Don't forget, we talked about, this came up in our class, I forget your class, the other one. Engineering is a lot about math and analysis, and you don't always get the opportunity to be creative or be involved in the creative and divergent parts of the design process. But if you're an engineering student, you'll learn all about orthographic drawing for weeks and weeks and weeks, right? We're not going to learn about it where we're going to have all those rules that you would have in your other classes. We're just going to have like a handful of rules that we'll follow and learn in the lesson that you'll apply in the assignment. And then later, anytime we're in the design challenge or the full design process, you'll use both of these types of images to plan out your object before you create it. All right. But what I was getting at, we're going to start with the 3D stuff today. And before we do, I want to ask you guys about something called the multiple intelligences. The multiple intelligences is just a model that somebody came up with in the 70s for explaining that we all have different capacities for the same, there's different areas of intelligence that we all share, but that some people may be higher in certain areas than others. The multiple intelligences. Does anybody know what any of these multiple intelligences are? There's at least 5 or 6 of them we're going to name here before we get started. So they say a lot of schoolwork, like what you do in traditional K-12 schooling, does a lot with math, right? And language arts in school, right? A lot of that. So if you love math, if you love solving equations, if doing math problems makes you feel good, you feel comfortable in math, also things with logic, details, order, placement of things, that's going to be called, the one that goes with that is logistical intelligence, like logic, logistical. And in fact, people who are really high in logistical intelligence often enjoy when we do the orthographics on graph paper, because there's a perfect way to draw everything so it comes out perfect, right? And as long as you have a ruler, you could scale your drawing to be perfect, even if you're not a good artist. It has nothing to do with it, right? If you're really comfortable in writing and reading and maybe speaking languages, you love that kind of stuff, we're going to talk about, like from English and literature, that would be linguistic intelligence. Linguistic. And the thing is that if your self-identity about school in terms of like how smart am I, or what am I good at, or what am I not good at, a lot of people base so much of their own self-identity on these two things that school pronounces so much, but there's a whole other list of things down here, right, that you just don't always get gauged on when you're in school, right? They make up the whole person. So what else do we have on here? What other intelligences? And you guys sing in the shower? You don't even have to be good at singing. We're good at playing an instrument or playing an instrument. But if you like music a lot, and music has power over you to the degree to which when you hear a certain song or something, it can transcend. It can be transcendent. It can take you right out of your current mood and take you somewhere else. It could transcend time. It could be like a time machine. It could take you back nostalgically to feelings and emotions. You might go to concerts because you seek out that transcendent experience of a whole group losing their individual identity and coming in as a group in a concert or something like that. I had a friend that if I went to his house and we were getting ready to go out, he put a different song on for everything he was doing. Changing your socks, different song. Looking for shoes, new song. I'm like, this guy's crazy. He just has to have a new song for everything. Get in the car, where we go, oh, got to pick the right song, right? High musical intelligence. Can I bother asking you guys for any of these other ones? Or you just want me to spin them out for you?
Isn't it like intrapersonal and interpersonal?
Here we go. Interpersonal. We'll start with that one. Interpersonal. So this is like between you and other people, right? So this is in all these intelligence, like how much command and control do you have over these areas? And so if you have when you're with other people, you feel very comfortable. You can understand other people, and you can get people to clearly understand you. And it's not just information, it's also emotions, right? When you talk to people that you like, you want them to know you're listening. So you mirror their body language. When they're leaning over with their hand on their chin, you lean over with your hand on their chin. When they face you, you face them and square with them. You're mimicking people's body language as a way to let people know that we're present, we're listening to them. If you're just good like that with other people, you're going to have high interpersonal skills, right? And what about the other one you mentioned, intrapersonal? What does that mean? Intrapersonal. Say again?
It's like about yourself. So I guess just understanding yourself.
Yeah. If you're very aware of what's going on with yourself at any given time and able to control yourself. So, I remember back when I was in college, if I failed a test or something, I would get so down on myself. I'd be in a bad mood for the next couple of hours at least. Probably wouldn't carry over the next day, but I'd be like miserable. And I wouldn't even realize I was giving off this negative energy afterward. Have no idea like what I was putting out into the world, because I wasn't in control of myself in those situations yet. I just hadn't developed it. Nobody pointed it out to me. But maybe if when you're getting too worn out and tired, when you're studying for too many days, you're like, you know what? I catch myself. I better take a break and take care of myself, because if I don't recharge, I'm not going to get any further with this studying I'm doing. Other people don't realize when they need to stop. They'll just push themselves till they fall over. So that's a good explanation there. Was that Noel who said that? What was that one? Well, whomever that was nice. Thank you. We got a couple more on here. 3 more, actually. How about people who have their mind can control their body really well? Mind and body control. Mind and body. I watch kids that watch YouTube videos now, and they can study something, get really good at it. When people juggle a soccer ball and they kick their leg up and bounce the ball with their foot a bunch of times. What do they call it? Juggling the soccer ball, whatever. My world record is 4 times without dropping it. 4. That's not very high kinesthetic intelligence. When you see little kids that just pick up the ball, and after a day or two of practice, they're kicking it over with one leg over their head, bouncing behind them, blah, blah, blah. It's like, wow, that person has a lot of control over their physical body, right? So apply that to anything, not just soccer, like anything. Kinesthetic intelligence. think I spelled that right. Kinesthetic. Yep. Okay, we got two more. This one begins with an N. All right. And you know little kids have it because when they're little, they never stop asking questions. They always want to know why. How does this work? How does that work? Why do we do that? Why? You were all like that when you were little, right? But something along the way, somewhere, it usually gets stomped out of us. Stop asking questions, stop wondering. But there is an intelligence to always being curious about the world and asking questions and then seeking out your own answers to them.
Does it have to do with nature?
It does.
Is it naturalistic?
Naturalistic intelligence. Yeah. Naturalism would be like the way they would explain science, where someone would go out and observe the world, right? And use observation and turn it into the scientific method to discover something. That's a naturalistic intelligence. Nice job. All right. And the last one here, we get to the very last one. This is the one that I think really deals a lot with what we're going to talk about tonight. All right. Well, probably kinesthetic. Like if you don't write and draw very much with your hands, if you're always just on the computer typing like this, you got to imagine that all these other ligaments and tendons and stuff in your hands, they may not be as dexterous as you might want. Your dexterity might not be as high because you're not doing stuff like that. Right. You don't use it, you lose it. And that goes with anything on here. It drives me nuts when people say like, oh, I'm not good at this, or I'm not a math person like that. It's like we all have proclivities in these areas, but throughout our life, as life goes by, we lean into the things that we're really good at, right? And we rely on those intelligences, and then the other ones fall to the wayside and they atrophy. You don't use it, you lose it, right? And so you'd be shocked at just what you're actually capable of if you put the time and the energy or put in the environment where you have to rely on some of these other intelligences or utilize them more often, right? Those skills will get sharper. They'll develop. It's all built into our DNA. It's just a matter of that nature and nurture, whether or not we're putting ourselves in the situations that'll make these other areas stronger, right? So I was saying kinesthetic is like mind controlling the body, controlling the pencil when you draw, you know what I mean? And like what you can listen to, when you just get distracted when you're drawing. But the last one down here that we'll go with this the most will be spatial intelligence. Spatial. All right, spatial intelligence. Now, what's spatial all about? Well, the best way I like to explain spatial is like I have a little brother, and he's 5 years younger than me. You'll hear some stories about him later in the safety story. I chopped his finger off one time. You'll hear about that in another class, future class. But when we were little and my brother couldn't even talk yet, like he didn't have words yet, he loved McDonald's so much that if we were in the car and he wanted McDonald's, he could point and tell my mom where to turn from anywhere in Burlington County and find a McDonald's. He knew his way everywhere, but his speech hadn't developed yet. Like it was wild. He just had a very great, he had a really good control and understanding of the 3D world around him, And some of us can orient ourselves that way. You're good with directions. You're good at finding your way around. You're good at using maps. You're good at maybe like when you're figuring out the fastest way to get somewhere. But it goes a lot deeper than that. It's you're aware of the things in your 3D environments and their positioning with respect to one another. So spatial intelligence can come in play when you're out in like a sports field or something, playing different sports. But it also deals with what goes on in your mind. So if we're looking at a flat piece of paper like this, but we're saying like, look at this flat piece of paper, but can you like in your mind start conjuring up how something can be 3D on this flat paper? If you're not used to thinking that way, right? Trying to draw 3D stuff on a flat piece of paper is difficult because you maybe haven't engaged that part of your spatial intelligence, right? And so even when you shut your eyes and you try to imagine or envision something, like I know we mentioned this before about your mind's eye being a thing, right? How you can shut your eyes. And if I say picture a sports car on a sunny day, parked in a parking lot, you may not be picturing the exact same thing as me, but with your eyes closed, in your mind's eye, you can conjure up some imagery, right? And I was saying that statistically 1 in 50 people can't do that. They can't do that. There's something blocking that from happening, right? So that's a reality too. But your ability to visualize things in your mind will get stronger the more you do it. And people who do stuff like this all the time, work in CAD a lot, they can like start designing something in their mind and leave it go and come back to it later and spin the thing around in their mind and look at it and picture what it looks like underneath. But you spend so much time in this world with your eyes open, looking at the world around you, right? If you built up your ability to envision things with your mind, with your eyes shut and blocking out the rest of the world, that can get so strong. It's ridiculous. And that's probably one of the easier ones to develop, because you don't need anything. You just need to be able to shut your eyes and focus. So what I love about this lesson and drawing things in 3D for isometric is that even if you don't have high spatial intelligence, I can show you mechanically steps to follow to orient your pictures in the right 3D view so that they will look like you really know what you're doing, right? And as we practice it, you'll get a little bit better at it. And so to kick this part of the drawing off, this part of the exercise, the first thing I would like you guys to do now that we've mentioned the intelligences, is on another piece of paper, whatever, I want you to start drawing some stuff for me on your paper in 3D, whatever that means to you. Just draw something in 3D. I feel like I might have started to tell you this piece of the story before. When I was in kindergarten, I went to school in a town called Delran Bears. I left kindergarten and went to Cinnaminson. When I came to my first grade classroom for the first time, I was a little nervous. I didn't know anybody. There was one seat open in the room, and it was like there was like a bunch of desks all in a line. You know, the big cubby desks that you sit in when you're a little kid? And the cubby desk has like the little pencil holder thing in here, down here. You know what I'm talking? You put your books inside there. I went and I sat down at my desk, and the kid next to me in here, he was inside his desk. His whole upper half of his body was inside his desk. And, I want to introduce myself. So I knocked on the desk, and he says, "What?" And I said, "Hey man, my name's Chris. I'm your new seat partner. I just want to say hi. It's my first day here." And he said, "I'll be out in a minute." I said, "All right." So a minute later, he pops out from underneath his desk, and I looked inside here, and this fool had taken all of his crayons. I say both. I say crayons. I haven't spent a lot of time in North Jersey. I used to say crowns. Now I say crayons. He had taken all of his crayons and run them through his pencil sharpener, and had a big pile of multicolored crayon shavings sitting over here on the side of the pencil holder thing. And he had a bottle of white glue. And I looked in there and I thought, oh my God, this kid's going to get expelled. I can't believe what he just did. And he says to me, he said, "Listen, man, I'm inventing something nobody's ever seen before, and I need your help." I said, "Okay." He says, "Can I trust you?" And I said, yeah, you can trust me. And he said, "I'm inventing a multicolored crayon, a rainbow crayon, and no one's ever seen one before. And what I need to do is I need to shoot some of this glue into this part of the desk here and fill up that pencil holder. And then I'm going to slide all these crayon shavings in there, and I'm going to roll it up. And when we come back from the cafeteria, it'll be dry and we can draw rainbows." And I was like, no way. There's no way that would work. And he says, "Well, I need your help. When I squeeze the glue bottle, it's going to make a noise. I need you to cough so the teacher can't hear me doing it." I said, "Okay." It was the first time I did something bad. And I waited and I watched him. And as he squeezed the bottle, it started making noise. And I went, and it worked. Teacher didn't hear us. We got the glue in there. We did the thing. We came back, and sure enough, man, we had this rainbow colored crayon. We were going like this, with big white rainbows with it. And I was like, oh my God, Mike is the coolest kid I've ever met in my life. I can't wait to sit next to Mike every day. So I came into class the next day. Mike was already waiting for me, and on his paper, he had drawn a square. And he looked all excited, and I was a little let down when I saw the square, because I was like, "Mike, we already learned how to draw shapes in my kindergarten class in Delran." He said, "Yeah, that's not what I'm doing today." He said, did you ever learn how to do this?" And I said, "Mike, that just looks like a square on top of a square. What's the big whoops? What's the big deal?" And you know what Mike did next, right? Shut me up. What did Mike do next? What did he do?
The lines to make a cube.
Exactly. Yeah. I had no idea it was coming. And he went like this and took one corner to the next. And as soon as I saw the first one, I was like, what am I looking at? I wasn't really sure. But then as he started to draw the second one, I could see it. I could suddenly see that this was turning into like a 3D cube and not just two. And I was like, oh my God, is that how you do it? He's like, that's how you do it. That looks terrible, by the way. That's how you do it. I make something 3D. I said, does it work with any shape? He goes, yeah, you could draw a circle and then draw an offset circle like this, and then connect the sides with straight lines. You've got a cylinder. You could take a triangle. You're not going to make a pyramid, but if you draw another triangle next to it, you can make a 3D triangle. All right. And this was all I did on my papers for every year after that. All the way through high school, I drew 3D. I thought I was drawing 3D stuff, and I was so proud of myself. And then when I got to college, I took creative design class just like you guys, and I had a drawing lesson. The teacher said, draw something in 3D. And so I just asked you, I drew a cereal box, right? I had the cereal box here, and I pretended it was sitting on a table. And I was like, okay, how do we go 3D? I just pick a corner, right? And I'm either going to go to this way or this way, but I'm just going to draw on a 45-degree angle, right? So this face faces me head on, but then these faces back here, these move away from me on a 45-degree angle. And these faces here end up looking skewed, because this one's head on, but then these two are kind of like skewed away from each other. And I realized in that class that drawing in this type of 3D view, which by the way, this type of 3D picture is called an oblique view, where the sides go away on a 45-degree angle like this, at 45-degree. This is called oblique. And guess what we do with oblique view? Nothing. Nobody uses it. It's not an acceptable view used in or type of 3D view used in designing, engineering, and architecture, right? The oblique view. And it's the most common one though. So we're gonna recognize, I'm gonna imagine many of you drew something like I did, where you drew the front face and then you went off to one side in a 45-degree angle, right? You got maybe you already know about isometric. That's totally cool. If you do, I'm gonna challenge you to get better at isometric too, but at the same time is helping new people learn to draw it. So we're gonna never come back to this again in this class. We're never gonna draw an oblique view anytime we attempt to draw something in 3D. Oblique, bad. Boo. Boo. Okay. In isometric, what we're gonna do, instead of the face being the closest thing to us, like it is here, and then these two faces move away, but this front face is right there. Instead of that, we're going to draw in isometric, where the closest thing to us in this picture is not a face, but is one of the corners, or a vertex or an edge. And so in this type of 3D cube, the edge is the closest thing to what we're looking at. And instead of drawing out on a 45-degree angle like this, we're going to draw faces going away from the corner on 30-degree angles. 30-degree angles. So how do we get 30 degrees? And hopefully you're doing this without a ruler or a protractor, right? Because just you can learn to gauge and estimate this without having to have any of those tools and still make a perfect sketch. If I was drawing if I was trying to figure out my angles, I know you know this, but this is what you're going to end up doing when you're trying to get that 30-degree angle just right. If I break this down 360 degrees, right? If I go this much, it's 180. If I just take this quarter of the pie here, that's 90 degrees. If I bisect that 90 degrees, I got a 45 and a 45, right? If I want 30 degrees, I have to come lower than this. I don't want to be so low that I'm at 15 degrees. I want to go right in between the 15 and the 45, and that's going to give me this 30-degree line. This one right there, right? That's important, this 30-degree angle here is important, right? So that's what we're going to do in our picture. And I'm going to try to draw an ice cube. I'm going to try to draw the perfect ice cube in isometric. I'm going to try one, and I'm going to make my second one a little better, my third one a little better. And if you already know isometric, because you totally know what it is, you have no problem with that, then you're going to start drawing a treasure chest in isometric. And you're going to start drawing it with the lid cocked open. All right. And if that's something you maybe done before, maybe you could draw like a pack of candy cigarettes with the lid cocked open. And of all the little candy cigarettes there, one of them might be popping up into the air up out of the pack. Otherwise, you're with me on isometric cube right now. We're just going to start going through how to draw the cube without a ruler or protractor or anything. I'm going to start with a straight line just to kind of represent a baseline where I can start my drawing off of. And I go baseline, perpendicular line. Boom. Baseline, perpendicular line. Next, my 30-degree angles. So I'm not going through the middle here and doing a 45. I'm going to come lower than that and come down to a 30-degree angle. That's really important, is having that angle pitched properly. Once I have a 30-degree angle on that side, I'm going to come over to the other side and do another 30-degree angle. Now, just for note, I'm imagining many of you are holding your hand to the table and putting your pencil down and you're moving your fingers around. That's right. That's one way to draw. Another way to draw is to keep your hand fixed, but to be moving your elbow and your shoulder, and your hand stays fixed, and you may not actually touch it to the paper until you're ready to. Right. So those are two different ways you could be drawing. I suggest experimenting with both. Now, in a perfect cube, every one of the lines that we draw in the cube will be the exact same length, and that'll be what makes it look perfectly symmetrical. But for right now, I'm just kind of estimating. So once I have my baseline, perpendicular line, 30, 30, then I need parallel lines that go straight up and down. Not in toward each other like a pyramid, but straight up and down. All right, so I'm going to try to come out same distance as this, and let's go straight up. I come over to the other side and do the same thing. Now, once I'm here at this point, I don't know, maybe you could start to see this as a cube. You can already start to see where if I get these lines in here, right, and the top's going to be up here. But you're looking at this, maybe you see like the corner of a city block, you know, and this is like the sidewalks down here. People are walking down the sidewalk. Maybe there's trees, you know, could look like a city block. Or maybe you're looking at this and it starts to look like a book to you. Maybe there's an alien back there reading the book, trying to read a book. Maybe I use some pictorial verbiage that suggests that this alien's feet smell. We're not going to do the book. We're going to finish it off to be a full cube. So tell me those steps again. It's baseline, then what? Baseline. Perpendicular line. What's next?
The 30-degree lines.
30, 30. What's next?
Parallel lines.
Parallel lines. So straight up and down, straight up and down. Now to accomplish this, make this 30 the same as this one and this one the same as that one. I like to maybe take a ruler or a straight edge if I need to. And I could kind of lay it down on this one and say, all right, I'm gonna start bringing this back, keeping it parallel, keep it even, keep it even, keep it even until I get to the tops. Right there. Hit it. One way to do it. Get those even. Cool. I know I want to finish the cube, but right now I have to address this urge that I have to connect this end to this end. You know, that's not what we're supposed to do. We're not going to connect this corner to this corner. If we did, we might end up with a big piece of cheesecake. Get that graham cracker crust back there, the graham cracker on the bottom, maybe a layer of chocolate inside the cheesecake. You know, it's got some stuff on top of it. There's ridges in the back, you know. We're not trying to draw cheesecake though. So I need your help one more time with the steps. What are the steps again? It's a baseline.
Perpendicular.
Perpendicular line. Next.
30-degree angles.
Right, so I'm gonna make sure I'm not going halfway and doing a 45. I gotta go lower than that to get the 30. 30. Next.
Parallel.
The kick, it's good. All right, I can already see I'm a little short here, so I'm gonna come up a little bit taller on these. 30, 30, 30, and 30. And it might be helpful to get my straight edge here to get this line parallel to this one when I draw it. So I'm going to kind of slide it back evenly, hit it. And I'm trying not to be a perfectionist with this, right? The goal is that we're going to do a couple cubes in a row and then we'll get to the last one you do will look really good. But for now, it's okay to cast your lines over, draw more lines than one, whatever. Line that up over there. Cool. Now I got myself an isometric cube. It's not perfect. I can tell it's actually like a little longer this way than it should be tall, right? Seems a little out of whack. Like in a perfect cube, your corner up here would line up right over top of that corner. And if I were to measure these, they would each line here would be the exact same length. All right. So I want you to practice now. Draw a few cubes in a row till you get your, and they could be like half the size of your fist or like the size of your fist, you know, and just draw a couple up until you get one that looks as symmetrical as possible. All right. What you definitely have to watch is this pyramid thing I was saying is people do it without even noticing they're doing it. You have to see yourself doing it and catch it to be aware of it. Is you'll start to pyramid your lines in. So instead of these being parallel, you'll kind of draw them in toward the center a little bit, not thinking about it, not realizing it. And then you end up with something that looks like this. That's more of like a pyramid, right? We don't want that. We want these lines out here to be straight up and down. Straight up and down. Okay, so you guys keep working on that cube. And while you do that, I'm gonna start drawing up a little treasure chest over here for the people that felt a little more confident already getting started. I always start with my baseline, perpendicular line. But since a treasure chest is definitely a little more of a rectangular prism, it's like longer than it is wide. I'll bring this side out a little longer than this one. And remember, we're gonna practice more of isometric next week too. To finish this lesson. We got a lot more to go on it, but maybe between now and next week, you could just be like practicing little sketches on your own, like trying to draw some cubes, more complex shapes, right? So that you don't leave it for a whole week before we come back to it. You can literally do this in another class, while you're in another class, be on a piece of paper trying to make perfect isometric cubes. So for my treasure chest, let's see this profile I want here. It's like the side here. And the way I map one out is I start with the parallelogram and I find the center point here and the center point over here. And then I draw what's called a little construction line for myself. I just make like a light dotted line and I'll make that one go straight up and down, just parallel, just like that, as high as I want the tip of the arch to be. And I'll do the same thing out here. And these have to end up being the same height, that one and that one. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the same 30-degree angle I have here and the same one there. I'm going to connect these two at the top with that same 30-degree angle. And now it kind of looks like a little lunchbox. I grab this thing, pick it up, walk around with it, right? Almost looks like a tissue box with a tissue sticking up out of it almost, yeah. But what I'm going to do to finish this off is make this hoop here. And the hoop has to go from this corner to this corner and pass through that center top. And so it's not going to be a perfect U, right? Because we're over here on a 30-degree angle. And so that what could look like a U is going to be skewed because it's going to be like a wide angle up here. When we get to the top, it's going to make a drastic fall back down. And over here, I don't even need that first part because it's hidden. I just have to bring that back down. Nice. Now I have like looks like the start of a treasure chest. Or maybe it's a mailbox. If I kept going with this here, kept going with this angle. I took that same 30-degree angle there and put a 30-degree angle there. Put that little apex. I could probably now it looks like one of those mailboxes with the flag that sticks out. If you were drawing the treasure chest with the open lid, probably the easiest way to draw it is to have the lid all the way open, right? Because then it's like a sine wave. Check that out. Cool. Love that. That's awesome. So its opposite would be so down there, and then I'd make that 30-degree angle off the back of there. And you could kind of see like if this lid wasn't here, right? That'd be like the lid opened up in the back. If the lid was to keep going. If you're still working on the cube, you're good. Just keep working on perfect cubes. Don't care. Don't worry nothing about treasure chests. All right. A pack of cigarettes, candy cigarettes. Maybe there's a pack and it's opened up. See how I would open that box lid like that. That was the case. Now I need like a bunch of these in there, but one of them is going to be sticking up. Maybe this one. Straight up and down, straight up and down. It's still an isometric. And what's cool about this thing with this like starting it off like a cube is like if you wanted to draw a whole car, like remember how I did that truck in the beginning of the morph chart? The way I was laying that truck out. What I was doing when I did that truck was I was like, okay, let me start with a baseline. Let me get a perpendicular line. And if I'm going to do a whole truck, that's a lot to think about at one time, you know? But how do you eat an elephant? Class, how do you eat an elephant? How do you eat a whole elephant? Anybody? One bite at a time. One bite at a time. So if I'm trying to think of what a car would look like, let's just picture a big parallelogram first with these 30-degree angles, right? And now I'm going to try to fit this car into this parallelogram. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw like the side profile of the car over here. And I know this corner here would be like the front corner. So there'd be like a wheel here. And this is like the bumper and a headlight. So I'm going to build off this just from the side view. I'm going to try to draw the side profile of like a race car or something. There we go. Side profile of a race car, right? And then off this, each piece of this car, I'm going to kind of draw like keep it on this 30-degree angle. Hood, windshield, trying to stay on that same 30-degree angle. Back of the car. And now the same curve that I made here, I'm going to make that same curve, but offset it back, start back here, and run it into the same lines. I have a spoiler back here. Draw the spoiler on a 30-degree angle, 30-degree angle, mirror that same curve there. Drop the bars down. the windshield. This is like the license plate down here. Even the top of the license plate goes with these same lines. And the sides of the license plate, straight up and down. Headlights, grill. So, you know, by no means is this a perfect looking vehicle, right? But if I'm trying to like, if for my assignment, I was going to pick a car to do because I want to challenge myself. And that's the goal of these assignments, challenge yourself. If you drew a perfect grandfather clock back in high school in isometric sketch in art class, and it was awesome, and you got an A+, don't draw another perfect grandfather clock for this assignment. Pick something harder, something that you're not sure if you can pull it off, because all you have to do is complete the assignment to get an A. It doesn't have to be good, right? And so that's always a risk for me because it means people could just phone it in on this assignment and not take it too seriously. But it's also a perfect opportunity for you to take a risk, find out what you're made of, encounter that resistance in your life, and grow from it, where there's no chance of getting a bad grade because you took a shot. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. But if I was going to try the race car, this is how I might kind of start it off at home in pencil, just to kind of orient myself and be like, okay, this is what I'm working with. You know, definitely the car would need to be like a little, this would have to be a little bigger here, you know, and then I would start playing with it. And then I would, after 20 minutes of playing with it, then I'd be like, all right, now I'm ready to go with pencil and sketch out a perfect isometric car, as perfect as I could get it, with as many details as I can in an hour. You want to spend, like you said, an hour on this assignment. And in these, you would use color too. And I basically ask you to pick something, draw it in isometric, and color it in, and take up as much of the paper as you can. All right. But I don't want you to complete this assignment this week because we still have more to learn about isometric. We just started with little cubes here. Okay. And when I need to see you got your papers too, I need to walk around you and point stuff out to you and help everybody out. And when I'm in person, I could totally help you get better from wherever you're at. Right. I'm sure there's a handful of people in here in the room too who are just better artists than me to begin with. That's probably the case. So just to keep going from where we were at with isometric stuff, I want to come back to the cube and say, you know, now when I do cubes, I don't always sketch them out, start with the vertice. You see me going like a different order here, and see how I switch my drawing style too. I'm holding my hand tight, and I'm just moving my wrist and my elbow, and my shoulder. Right. This is a cube. I wanted to differentiate between what we're doing now and these other perspectives you might have learned about in art class, so that we don't start doing those other perspectives. If you're in art class, there's something called 1-point perspective. We're not doing that in this class, but just so you know what it is, in 1-point perspective, you would start off your 3D picture kind of like the old oblique view, where the face is the closest thing to you. And then you would you put a point somewhere out in space. It could be anywhere. It could be here. And where that point is, everything disappears, not on a 45-degree angle, but in 1 point, everything disappears on whatever angle it takes to get to that point. So everything disappears back to that point, right? And then from there, you map out the rest of the thing that you're drawing. So if this was like some type of truck, that could be the back of the truck. And maybe there's the front of the truck. Tractor trailer, you know, coming down the highway, and it disappears to 1 point. We're not doing that. There's also 2-point perspective, where you start with a corner of something, like a building could be like a corner, and you have a point out here and a point out here on a horizon line. And everything that you draw to the right goes out to that point there. Everything to the left goes out to that point. And we end up with these buildings that are both facing that point and the other point. I'm not going to waste any more time on it. Just remember, we're not doing 1 or 2-point perspective. We're staying in strict isometric. But from this cube, what I want to show you like an isometric cylinder, because I'm sure you guys have drawn cylinders before. You know, there's a cylinder right there, no big whoops. But is it an isometric? Probably not, unless you could see the face, the top face. This is too narrow, the top face, for an isometric cylinder. If I were to plot a cylinder out inside of a cube and go through and make, what do they call these? Like quarter circles, arcs or fillets, what are they called? Arcs, I think. and I were to arc through each one of these points, you'd see that the circle up top would need to be a lot wider here than that little narrow slit there. So it's wider. And then from the sides, I need to go straight down, right? And how do I finish off the bottom of this cylinder here? Like, can I finish off that cylinder with a straight line? Nah, it don't look right, does it? It would only be a straight line if it was a flat picture in 2D. We're not in 2D. So the same curve you have up top here, you'd have to match that curve at the bottom. So the same curve I have there, I'd have to match that curve. And so what I've just done for you is I tried to plot an isometric cylinder inside of the isometric cube. So you can see that the top of the cylinder needs to be open a lot and that the sides are perfectly straight. And if I was going to have a label on this, I would make the label go around in a curve the same way. And so would my letters. The bottom of the L would be on a curve. The top of the E, the bottom of the E would be on a curve, even though this part of the E would be straight up and down, just like the sides would. This center line of the E would be on the same curve. That's a candle love right there. Maybe it's a love candle. It's funny, we get candles that have the 3 wicks in them, you know? Guess how many wicks I'm allowed to light when I light the candle? If my wife's home. 1, especially on a good candle. Can't be using up the whole good candle. Don't light all 3 wicks, light 1. All right. So what I'd like you guys to do is to try a couple, you don't have to put the cylinder in the cube, but I would like you to try drawing a few cylinders on your paper. And then maybe take one of those cylinders and turn that cylinder into a can of soup. That curve matches that curve. Maybe there's a curved label. And I want you to draw your favorite soup, but only use pictures. All right, so I'll give you an example. This is my favorite soup right here. And the label would look like this. There's a cup of the soup, and there's some steam coming off that cup. There's the spoon there. And then just tell you the kind of thing, only in pictures. Let's see, it's going to be a, all right, what kind of soup do I got? Don't guess clams and ham. It's not clams and ham. This is a legume. And that is not salmon. That's a meat. Come on, I know you know it. I'm splitting this legume. I'm showing it's split.
Split pea.
Ding, 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 ding. Thank you, Joseph. Great job. Split pea and ham. While you work on yours, I'm going to test your knowledge of another one. The cylinder going here. Okay, I need a special drawing technique for this one because this is the technique I need here. All right, I'm going to take this and I'm going to do what's called the magnified view. I'm going to circle that there, and then I'm going to draw it real big here in the bigger circle so that you could tell what it is that's inside here that I'm holding. It didn't turn out too good. I need a pencil. Doesn't matter, you'll still be able to guess it. Okay. See this shirt? This shirt had a rip in it. And so I had to fix it. And I fixed it by hand. All right. And this, I was trying to show you what I was holding in my hand here, but in this picture didn't do it justice. But I was trying to show you it bigger so you could see what I was holding here. That's a needle, like a needle and thread. What kind of soup do I got here? You want a hint? That's me. That's me. I'm holding a needle and thread, and I'm doing something to fix this shirt that was ripped. I got a second hint, but I don't even know how to give you this. The second hint is just such an easy hint. You're going to get it right away. The soup is of an Asian persuasion.
Miso soup.
Joseph, again, everybody. Joseph, beat us to it. Nice job, Joseph. Miso soup. Now I'm interested in seeing what you guys came up with. Let's see if you can stump any of us here. Anybody finish off their picture yet for their soup? Joe, can you turn your camera on so I can see your face so I remember your next class? Just for a second. Can you turn on for a second? I'm not going to high five you in public when I see you, but there's a bunch of Joes and a bunch of Dominics between the two classes. Great job. Did anybody finish off their soup label yet? You want to try to stump the class? While we're waiting for somebody to come up with a cool, or just anything to try to stump us, we might want to play with a couple more cylinders for the next couple minutes. Just for funsies. I could probably take like a cylinder like this, make it short, like it's a hockey puck, you know? It's flying through the air. Maybe it's a can of tuna fish. Maybe I could take a cylinder and put it on top of another cylinder. Start to look like a hat or a three-tiered cake. I'm gonna plot out some candles on my cake here. Let's plot them out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 candles. My grandpa used to always say at my birthday party, call the fire department. Got too many candles on there this year. Whenever I'm making a cartoon cake, I have to keep in mind that I'm not making what perspective I'm in. Because if I'm in isometric like we are, and I'm going to put roses on here, every rose is still going to be the same size all the way around the cake. Right, they'd be the same size. If I was in a cartoon and I was trying to draw a 1-point perspective cake, the cake might be like way bigger in front of me. And if I was drawing up those roses, the roses would look really little in the back, and they would start to get bigger as they got to the front of the cake, you know? But as they went away from me, if they were actually disappearing to one point, they would get a lot smaller as they went around the cake, you know? I'm not doing that though. I'm staying isometric. Maybe we could draw a soda, a fountain drink with the lid on top. And you know, the sodas, they taper, right? They taper down. Those cups taper. They get smaller as they go down. Maybe you got a straw in there. Got the crazy straw, the one that bends. Put that through that little thing that pops up in there. Maybe turn them into Master Shake from Aqua Teen Hunger Force. That was a talking flying milkshake. In the next class, we got one more picture we're going to draw, but I just want to give you a little sneak preview. In the next class, we're going to learn to draw some of these classic flames. And the way that we do these is we always start with like a teardrop. Then we put a teardrop inside of a teardrop. And then we put a teardrop inside of a teardrop and leave it open. And then we put the teardrop inside the teardrop, leave it open. We put a neck on it. And then we start to get flagrant and flamboyant with the tips of the flame. We might draw some spheres next week. We start with a circle. And instead of using shading to suggest things are 3D or that there's things that are closer to us or further away, I'll show you how to make these lines around the globe that pass through the center point in the top. You know, something like we have globes. Take these globes, turn this globe into an igloo. I'm going to show you how to do banners next week. Some 3D banners. Those are a lot of fun. They had to make some spray clouds or something like I was doing before with that foam. We've got like a jet stream of spray. All right, the last thing we're going to do here for the last 5 minutes of class. And if you still have these papers with you next week, you could bring these in with you in person. It'd be awesome because I could like see what you were doing tonight. If you could try to remember to bring them next week. What we're going to do now is, hey, Elizabeth, the bodily one was the kinesthetic. I just saw your thing in the chat. Let's pretend we're going to draw a dinner table scene. Just spend 5 minutes on it and see if we can like start to plot some objects on this dinner table, right? Like I could just start with like a dish here on the table, like a plate in isometric. I'm not worried about the tabletop. It's just like a plate, you know? And this plate might have like a little isometric thing of ketchup sitting on it, maybe a burger. That's what I'm going to start with. And I'm going to see if I can get this like a cylinder and some cubes into this image here and just play around for 5 minutes. And then